Welcome everyone into Hogvillenet YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. This is my first foray on this platform talking Arkansas Razorbacks football. We are on the doorstep of the 2025 season. Sam Pittman sixth as the head hog. There's a bit of a debate in two different questions here, whether or not he should be or whether or not he is. Could be two different things, could be the same thing. On a hot seat coming into year six. Arkansas did finish the season last year with a winning record when you include the Liberty Bowl victory over Texas Tech, 7-6 finish. And you've got back-to-back Liberty Bowl wins. Sam Pittman, by the way, is 3-0 in bowl games in 5 seasons, 3 of which have technically ended with winning records. I think the standard that Arkansas would like to be at in football. He only had one season so far in the first 5 that kind of resembles what you'd like to see more consistently, the 9-win season and the win in the Outback Bowl over Penn State. So here we are. If you look at the last 3 years, mediocre at best. You had a losing season sandwiched in the middle there 2 years ago. What was that, a 4-win season? So Sam Pittman, whether he should be on the hot seat or not, that's probably a discussion for a different day. We're trying to get into the season now, look ahead. Figure out, what paths does this Arkansas football team have to earning success, and they're going to have to earn it, right? It's going to be decided on the field. It goes without saying that there are a lot of question marks, as always, when you're a middling SEC program, middling at best. Some years, again, bottom tier of the league. You've got to wonder, how did you do in recruiting? What did you do in the portal? What gives you a pathway to move in the program in a positive way and taking the next step? And so those are all question marks coming into this. But you've been in fall camp now, or training camp, whatever you want to call it, going on a week, and you got in full pads for the first time yesterday. So we're starting to learn more, especially the coaching staff talking to reporters, talking to the fans. Everybody's able to see what they're saying, and you learn a little bit more about not only your position groups, but maybe starting to build some idea what the identity of this team can be. And I think I think the one thing that Sam Pittman has going for him, I think he's got positives in his coordinators. When you look at offense and defense, especially. And so I think when you looked at last season, there were a lot of missed opportunities in a 7-6 campaign that could have been better than that. It could have been, closer to a 9-win season in the regular season had you taken care of the football and not had some really unforced, sort of not only untimely but unforced turnovers, plays that it wasn't as much about the other team capitalizing as it was Arkansas just laying an egg and choking in situations. And so when we talk offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino, we know what that stirs up because of his success as a head coach in the college game, especially at Arkansas back in the BCS Bowl era. Now in year 2 as the OC, a lot of positives last year. He was grooming Taylon Green, who had a history before he arrived at Arkansas in the transfer portal of turnovers. Makes big plays, can find the end zone with his feet, or making a big play through the air. But also the turnovers. And last year they were crushing 9 interceptions, 15 touchdowns through the air, 9 interceptions, over 3,100 yards passing. But he had, in addition to those 9 interceptions, I think he lost 4 fumbles. So, he was in double digits in turnovers that were mostly on him. Sometimes INTs can be tricky because you put the ball in the money and there's a receiver's hands, there's a tip drill and then it ends up being INT. So you always want to drill down on those numbers and go and tell be honest with yourself. How many of those are on the player? How many of those could you spread around and maybe look at a busted assignment or not executing on somebody else's part? So with Taylon Green, that's got to be cleaned up. That's probably the biggest thing coming into this season is turnovers in general, but it's your leader. It's your point guard in football is your quarterback. This is a guy that has potential to have. I think he's got all league potential. I think 2 things with him, with Taylon Green. If you're going to build a successful season, he's got to limit those turnovers. He really, you're not an all league performer turning it over at that rate. And I think the other thing is improve the completion percentage. Just over 60% in year 1 under Petrino. Now he's a 5th-year senior. You want to see that percentage closer to 2 out of every 3. You want to get him. You'd like to see him at 65%. If you could get him to 66 plus, that'd be great. That'd be gravy. So you want to see a couple of things there: taking care of the ball better and doing a little bit better passing. I thought it was interesting. Some of the biggest plays he made and some of his effectiveness was when he got in scramble mode when the offense broke down. Flushed out of the pocket, run it, sprinting toward the sideline, and making some big, deep downfield passes that he put on the money. And then when he had pocket protection and it was looked like simple routes and simple plays for him, sometimes he was errant. And that's a part of why that percentage maybe is a little bit lower. So you want him to mature in that way. 32 sacks last year. That was a big number. There'll be questions on this offensive line. I think the left side with guys like Carmona and the transfer from Georgia Tech, Corey Robinson, I think, your left side's, you got good athleticism there. And, that's probably the strength of the offensive line, more question marks on the right. But if we start with offense, I think it always starts with your quarterback unless you have like a doomsday defense or a defense that's projected to be one of the best in the country. If you don't have that, then you need more than a game manager in the SEC at quarterback. And so we started on that side of the ball. And we're going to go through our resident expert, our insider, Otis Kirk, has been doing our Hogvillenet YouTube lives in tandem over the past couple of years. We'll see if he's going to be able to join the program sooner rather than later. Not able to at this time, but I am going to go through some of Otis's. I'm going to go through his top 5 takeaways or thoughts heading into this season. So we're going to jump into that right now. I kind of weighed in on what I thought. The first thing he said is what I started with. Can the Razorbacks cut down on turnovers? And can Taylon Green, he obviously had issues last year with that. Arkansas, as Otis brought up, and this is true, Arkansas as a team lost the turnover battle only won a game when it lost the turnover battle, only one time last year. And they lost the turnover battle a lot. Games they should have won, they lost because of that. The lone win was against Louisiana Tech. Arkansas lost the turnover battle, won the game. And so it just goes to show you Arkansas is not good enough on both sides. They don't have the depth, and they don't have that vicious defense, an improved defense maybe last year, but certainly not good enough to overcome the turnovers. So Otis, that was his number one point of contention, as it was mine. New wide receiver group, Otis Kirk points out, the questions are, and this is, with an Andrew Armstrong moving on, a great possession receiver, made big plays as well for Arkansas last year, really kind of a safety blanket, a security blanket, if you will. Otis says, is there no go-to guy? He thinks that's a little bit an overrated point to make. Teslaw's gone as well. He feels like, does Green necessarily need a player that he's locked in on so much? Maybe he was a little too much reliant on one guy last year, and maybe that affected some of his effectiveness. So it's a good point Otis brings up. Not sure how I feel about that. I tend to think I could see it both ways. I think having a reliable, pick up the first down kind of guy doesn't have to, rip the top off the defense every time down for the big play. Yeah, you want guys like that as well, but a guy that can help you move the sticks and keep drives alive, I think that's also important. So maybe Arkansas is able to identify who that is moving forward. But Otis seems to think this will be a faster and deeper wide receiver core in 2025. And so we'll talk on other episodes upcoming more about individual players in that position group. But it's a good, sort of as a generality, it's a good thing to bring up when you know who you lost. And there will be question marks there. Otis has a projection. He's put this prediction out a while back. I asked him recently, are you going to update that? And at this point, he's still sticking with right now. He thinks 6-6 is a fair. So basically equivalent to what Arkansas has done 2 of the last 3 years. And his reasoning is he thinks the talent is there to do better and to have, a better season and win more games in the regular season. But he thinks the schedule is obviously once again brutal. It always seems to be that way for the football team. We know how good the SEC is, but some of the non-conference scheduling is a bit puzzling, given where the strength of this Arkansas program really is. I know those games a lot of times are planned years in advance, so there's that. But he points to road games at Ole Miss, Texas, LSU, and Tennessee, not to mention what could be a tricky road game. Memphis is no slouch. You've got that game early on in non-con play. And it's also worth mentioning, a lot of people just pencil Arkansas as a winner over Arkansas State. That's going to be Arkansas State's Super Bowl, right? And it's played on, here in the 501 in Little Rock. So it is a tough schedule. That's where Otis is. I tend to agree with him. I might be a little bit more optimistic. A 7-5 might be my initial projection before we get further into this summer camp and get to the regular season opener, which is not far off. It's later this month, right? August 30th, opener at Reynolds Razorback Stadium against Alabama A&M. Feel confident predicting a win there. Then you've got Arkansas State and Little Rock. Then you're on the road to Ole Miss, and then you're on the road to Memphis, and then you get Notre Dame at the end of September at home, which we know how good Notre Dame and the quality of that program, not just historically, but how strong it is now. So there are a lot of question marks, not only about the road part of the scheduling, but even the in-state games, again, with Arkansas State and then Notre Dame. I'm not willing to just say, mark ASU off as a win. Probably will be, but we'll see. And then Notre Dame, that's going to be tough. You do get them at home. It's a brutal schedule, so 6-6 seems fair. I'm willing to stretch that to 7-5. Maybe I can find a win in there right now where Otis doesn't. And we'll go into more specifics. We're keeping this one to 15 minutes today. We'll go into more specifics maybe the next time we come on. Otis's fourth point that he brought up was, will the secondary be improved? Recruited DBs very well out of the portal. Notice the same thing. He thinks Julian Neal is going to be a star at Arkansas. And so, but it is important to note, a guy like Worthy, I remember he got a start last year after transferring. I think he got his first start against Tennessee. He did some good things for Arkansas when you look through their October through November run. He's a big DB, 6'4", he's back. I think he had I don't know if it was scrimmage work or what, but he came up with a pick the other day. You'd like to see more of that from him. But we'll see about the secondary. The fifth point on Otis's list here, the fifth and final. Who on the defensive line steps up to help Cam Ball and Quincy Rhodes Jr.? It's a great question. I think Arkansas is solid with those two, but that takes more than two. And then you always question the depth at Arkansas, where recruiting, you're trying to, typically you're doing the best you can to fill out a starting group. And then the depth, you're really keeping an eye on where that depth, but right now you've got question marks about who you're going to put on the field first on that defensive line. There's new personnel, guys like David Oakey, Danny Saley, Ian Jaffrard, Justin Boone, and Charlie Collins. So there's a lot of names there, and we'll be keeping an eye on that, as will Otis, as we move forward. So I wanted to share Otis's input for today since we don't have him on. I'm just going to add a couple of things to my takeaways. I started talking quarterback offense, with Taylon Green and the turnover aspect of it. Something else that's been really big to me in the Sam Pittman era, regardless of who his coordinators and who the personnel on the field is. When I look back on his time at Arkansas, this is a heavily penalized team. And it's been my impression it's one of the worst penalized teams in the SEC. And penalties are never good. There's not really a great time for them. But it seems like when Arkansas has success moving the ball on offense, they get behind the down and distance because of a stupid correctable penalty, a false start, or multiples of those. On defense, jumping into the neutral zone on 3rd and short when they get a chance to get off the field and they can't. They get an automatic. So there's just too much of that. Penalties coming out of a timeout where you call the timeout to get things situated in the order you want them and to be ready, and then you get a penalty on the out, stuff like that. So I went back and looked at the most penalized teams just last year. This to me has been a prevailing theme of what's really haunted Arkansas from some of these close games where they lose, where they should have won, you think they should have or should have been in position to win. It's not just turnovers were a big part of it last year, but for multiple years, I think it's been some of those just situational penalties, and they add up. And it's like a heavy dose here at Arkansas. Last year alone, Arkansas out of 16 teams, they were 12th in terms of most penalty or how they ranked in penalties. So they were top 5 then if you flip that and say they had one of the most penalized team, over nearly 7.5 penalties per game. Only 4 other SEC teams average more. And those are the kind of teams that recruit much better than Arkansas. They're built to overcome their own mistakes. They're typically, you know, able to build a lead or maintain a lead, and some of their mistakes they can live with. Arkansas is not good enough on either side of the ball when you look at talent measuring it up against other teams in this league, or most of the teams at the top anyway, to overcome self-inflicted wounds. They got to be better than the other team. So Arkansas is not very good in the penalty game. Last year, again, in Division I football, 134 teams that I saw that were the penalty stats came into play. 134 D1 teams. Arkansas ranked 114th. So only basically 20 teams that were worse than Arkansas in all of Division I. And if you look, you think, well, did Arkansas clean that up? Has that kind of been a theme early in the year? Because Sam Pittman constantly talks about in post-game situations, we got to clean that up, and we will. Well, they never really do. So I looked at that. Not only did Arkansas rank so poorly last season, just looking at last year, when you looked at the last 3 games of the season, the final quarter of your 12-game regular season, Arkansas was the 3rd worst penalized team in the country, over 9, nearly 9.5 per game. So they didn't get better, they got worse. What does that mean? I don't know. That's not in a vacuum. Again, I'd have to go back, peel back on previous seasons in the Sam Pittman era. I think it's just something that, if you've got to look at the top when it's consistently that bad. It's not a bad group of just a certain mix of players you have in the cycle and on a particular team. It's been consistently bad, and that always starts at the top. You've got to fix that because, again, you're Arkansas. You're not Georgia. You're not Alabama. You're not these teams that can overcome some of their self-inflicted wounds. Even those teams, some of the time it catches up with them. But for Arkansas, you're already playing from behind in terms of the quality of your roster relative to these other SEC teams. You can't help them out with those penalty whistles. All right, I didn't make 15 minutes. We're almost 17 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on Hogvillenet YouTube Live. This is our football hogs in 15. I put in parentheses on the tweet or more because I figured I'd go over. The other thing I'll say is this. Let's talk a little offensive line. I mentioned already Carmona and Corey Robinson. We talked about the 32 sacks for Taylor Green last year. You're looking for, some of that was on him, holding the ball too long, not seeing open receivers. They're right there in front of him. He's holding the ball too long. I know I'm hanging a lot on him, but you expect a lot from a veteran quarterback with his talents. It's one of those double-edged swords. The strength of his game, using his legs, breaking off big runs, sustaining drives, scramble mode, and makes a big pass downfield, sometimes for big touchdowns. You're not in the game without that, but you're also maybe giving yourself a chance to lose when your quarterback turns it over a lot, eats some sacks because he's not aware of how long he's held the ball and also what's right in front of him. Get the ball out of your hands. Again, the accuracy you want a little better, but the offensive line, I think because there are so many question marks on the right side, it brings up a lot of things because you already have a position group where you're starting over in a lot of ways in wide receiver. The running back group looks pretty good. You've got a key transfer in, Michael Washington Jr. out of New Mexico State. You're hearing good things about him, his speed. He's got good size. Braylon Russell's back, the bulldozer out of Benton. The Benton Bulldozer, we'll call him, and he's on the Doak Walker Award watch list. But the offensive line, I think, is going to be key for everything because I think Taylor Green needs protection, and then he's just got to figure out how to be better with his timing when he's in the pocket and decision-making there. But I also think that the running back group and the wide receiver group will be just fine. I do. I believe that those skill position groups to complement and help Taylor Green be a playmaker are there. It's just now, how do you shore up and get that offensive line where you're positive about that on both sides? I think that's a big key. All right, almost 20 minutes in. I'm going to sign off shortly. One last thing I'm going to leave with is it was great to see Darren McFadden, the announcement recently. I know you probably watched that Hog Plus segment with Quinn Grovey and our guy, Matt Zimmerman. Friends with both of those guys, known Quinn for a long time. We were backcourt guards together in a Rogers Rec League years ago, worked together. And of course, Matt with the basketball affiliation with the Razorbacks as a former assistant coach. They do a great job on their segments. They had DMAC on, and they surprised him with bringing in Hunter Yurchek and Sam Pittman to let him know that his number 5 jersey is going to be honored, not retired, honored. I think Cam Ball wears number 5 on defense, and so he'll wear that honorary patch on his jersey. And DMAC was, he teared up. He was grateful. And here's a guy that, not that he would say anything publicly negative about his jersey number not being retired, but he had a good take on it. That when people see number 5 on the field, it's a good thing, as it brings back memories of what he did and the damage he did in that jersey. And so, he's a guy that's arguably the greatest football player in the history of Arkansas Razorbacks football. There's some other great. It's a storied program when you go back historically. And I know DMAC getting that honor, that was a big thing. So we just talked running backs a little bit. How about the ultimate running back? DMAC getting the nod. All right, thank you for joining me. We'll be back on, I don't know how many times next week. I don't know how soon I'll be bringing Otis on. Appreciate all of you. A little awkward maybe for me this first time out. I was a few minutes late. I was on the phone with one of my sources for basketball, called me right before I was coming on, so that drug out a little bit, and I jumped on here as soon as I can. I had my notes in front of me, kind of sort of ready to go. Actually, I'll throw one more thing in since we're talking running backs. Arkansas got a recent commitment. It may be the most recent commitment from a running back, Jordan Avenger. Otis reminded me of this when I was asking him about recruiting. 6'3", 225, out of South Carolina. This was last week when this commitment was announced. Everybody was recruiting him as a linebacker. He's been mainly a linebacker prospect, but Arkansas is taking him in. He wants to play running back. And now Arkansas, I think, is up to 27 high school commitments. Otis said that's the largest number for high school commits in a while here at Arkansas. So, a couple of recruiting things there, stuff you already knew probably, just throwing it in there. And so, again, we'll be back on next week. I don't know how often just yet, at least once, maybe more. But until next time, thanks for being here. Appreciate everybody. See you soon.